Hello and welcome to Black Dog River Farm, and today we're going to be test driving the Ford Fusion. So yeah, the Ford Fusion, or I'm sure a lot of you in Europe and the UK will know this better as the Mk4 Ford Mondeo. I always like the look of it actually. I think the best thing about this generation of Ford Mondeo, or should I say Ford Fusion, sorry, is the design. I think it is the nicest looking. This will be a second generation Ford Fusion, although the first generation Ford Fusion wasn't related to the Ford Mondeo. I think it was more sort of like a Mazda 6. So yeah, not a bad looking car, particularly from the front. I think is the best position for this one. This particular one is the top model actually. At this time there was three trim levels: the S, the SE and the titanium, and this is the titanium with the 2-litre injection turbo engine. And this one also came with all-wheel drive. So yeah, an EcoBoost 2-litre turbo. Just a quick look around. So things you got on the top model was these. I think they're the 18-inch alloys. We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail in a moment. Leather trim is your other big feature, I guess. Heated and cooled seats. So a nice specification. Like I say, all-wheel drive here in Canada is certainly a useful thing to have. Anyway, let's get inside it, have a quick look around. So yeah, we're inside. In fact, the key on this is sort of like a very typical Ford key for the time, where this one's actually, because it's a titanium, it's actually got push start, so there is actually a key hidden behind here, but you don't particularly need it once you're inside there. So let's start her up. So this particular example, it's a 2015, but it's only got 97,000 kilometres, so a pretty low mileage example, but it's a daily driver, so obviously you can see by the outside it's not been particularly cleaned for this episode, of course, so it is what it is. I'm not going to go through all the features, because this is a titanium and it's got pretty much everything you would ever want on a car, to be honest with you, including your memory seats. In fact, when you get in and out of the car, the seat moves for you, and not a huge fan of that, but I'm sure it helps some people get in and out of their car. I think the only real criticism of this car, bit of a spoiler alert, is really this tech package that's within it, because they've really overcomplicated it, and it wasn't just Ford, it wasn't just Fusion at the time. Car manufacturers decided to start putting everything on a screen, so you have to go within menus to do various things. So for example, I want to turn the heat up. You're like, oh, where do I actually do that? Where, 3 dials was the optional, wasn't it? You didn't have to look at it. Now it's like, where on earth can I put the temperature up? And well, you can put it up here by pressing this, but then it doesn't tell you anything what the temperature's going up to. Fan speed, yeah, you can change from here. Again, it doesn't really tell you what it's doing until you actually go within the features. So for example, climate, and then you've got your temperatures. Oh, I'm actually at 23, so I can turn that down. But how are you supposed to do all that when you're driving? And they complain about you being on the phone when there's these tech packages at this time. We're crazy. I mean, how can you do all that sort of thing? And then you're in this screen, you're driving, and obviously you get used to all this and you do learn over time, but way too overcomplicated. You can see even here you've got your heated seats and your cooled seats and your heated steering wheel, all within various things. But then you're like, how on earth do I actually get out of this particular screen? There you go, I've just pressed a random button, it's taken me to the sat nav. And then we can go to menu. That isn't the right thing. But you know what I mean, it's just an example of a system that's way too complicated. And obviously later on, car manufacturers realised this was a crazy move and started to take away these physical buttons. But I don't think we ever got any better from just 3 dials on there, did we? That was kind of like peak for me, at least. But maybe I'm just a bit old-fashioned. Anyway, I'm waffling. So we've got a 6-speed auto transmission on this, like I say, coupled to that 2-litre EcoBoost turbo engine. Let's have a look in the back, see how much room is in the back there. Okay, so in the back then, so we've got the usual sorts of things. You fold down a rear armrest, cup holders, headrest variously, like I say, leather interior because this is the top model. We get rear vents in the back, which is always nice to have. Hard to say, really. This particular seat is set for me, but it's not, because the seat comes all the way back once the driver gets out the car. So if I slide over, I guess this is with the seats all the way back. Knees alert, sorry. Just about enough room. I'm just about scraping my legs on there, but that isn't the driver's position, so I guess when the driver gets out, you get crushed as a passenger. I don't particularly like that feature, but I understand why it would have that. Sunroof on this one as well, of course. Electric. Your garage openers or garage openers on the back there. A little bit of bright works to brighten things up a little bit. So just turning the camera around, so if we look at sort of headroom, I think that's the only thing. Headroom is a little bit tight. I'm kind of like just, if I sit up upright, I'm just about touching on top. Obviously if I slouch back down there's more room, but if I sit upright at me at 6 foot, I'm just at the top there. And if I lean all the way back, I am actually touching the top of the roof there. But in a normal sort of slouching position, you don't feel that. But yeah, it is a little bit limited for head space, I find. Okay, so in the back now, see how much space we've got in the back. Not too bad, actually. This is taken up by this spur wheel, but this is actually a full-size winter tyre. Actually, it's just been thrown here for easier changing. There is actually underneath here somewhere a space saver, but the owner doesn't like using space savers, so they've got a full-size wheel in there which pretty much takes all the space. But without that in there, not too bad for space. Under the bonnet, not much to see. It's a modern car with plastic covers, but there is your 2-litre turbo EcoBoost engine. As mentioned, yeah, these are 18-inch alloys. You can see they're a very low-profile tyre, which I guess is another modern thing, isn't it? Never been a huge fan of low-profile tyres, both on sort of comfort and particularly on these sorts of roads here in Canada, and you will see them in a moment, very much a lot of gravel roads out there. So yeah, in North America, of course, they tweaked the Mondeo, of course, the should I say the Fusion. They tweaked it for the North American market, so they tweaked the suspension, engine choice is different, no diesel options, automatics only, no manual option. Apparently they did have a hybrid as well, but yeah, always a little bit different, even though virtually it's virtually the same car as a Mondeo. I think one of the issues with these I've noticed, paint quality on these rear arches. I think they had some kind of like paint control issue with these, because this hasn't just happened with rust. The paint just fell off, and yeah, we've got a lot of gravel roads. You could argue, gravel is going to damage the paint anyway, but this kind of like flaked the entire section off, like there was some kind of paint control problem with these. And it's not just this one, I've seen it on probably, I don't know, 75% of Fusions round here all seem to have that same sort of paint control problem. These are, I think these are actually galvanised, actually, but it's just been left, this one. Not saying too much more about it, it's just been left, so obviously over time it does corrode like anything else. So yeah, there it is. Autos only, like I say here, and also no, we didn't get any estate or wagon version, rather sadly. I think that would have been a fantastic car to have around here, but they're kind of like much harder to get estates and wagons around here for quite some time, and you know, obviously even Europe, estates and wagons are dying out in favour for SUVs. Of course, that seems to be the thing, but it's nice to drive a car after driving SUVs and vans and trucks. It is nice to get back in there, so that's what we'll do next. We'll go for a little bit of a drive around. Oh, and one thing before I get in there, quite a lot of these in North America seem to be a bit of a thing where you can actually get in just using a keypad. This is a little bit of a strange idea, but I've only ever seen that in North America. But anyway, let's go for a little bit of a drive. Okay, we're underway, so let's see what this drive's like. Like I say, it's always nice to come back to a car when you've driven SUVs, of course, which I always think is nice. Yeah, so I'm just going to get down the driveway here before we'll go on to the main road, and let's see how it travels at speed. But overall, it's a very comfortable car. I'm never a huge fan of leather, I must admit. I prefer a nicer velour, but they are reasonably comfortable seats actually. But I'll pause the video here until I get onto the main road, just for security reasons. So here we are then in our 2015 Ford Fusion. Like I said, it's got the 2-litre injection turbo, although it never really feels like it's got a turbo on it somehow. It's a little bit weird like that. But yeah, it does feel rather nice on gravel roads actually. I always think gravel roads are a good test of any car. All-wheel drive system, of course, is going to help in these sorts of conditions as well as, you know, the winter time. So it is always nice to have all-wheel drive on a car. Really, the only disadvantage over an SUV really is the obviously the height. You know, if you're going over very rough terrain, you know, you've got more chance of catching something. A big rock or indeed deeper snow is going to catch it out eventually. But yeah, it's certainly got some advantages over an SUV, I find, and I always think I always enjoy it when you go back into a car after being doing like thousands of miles in an SUV. There is something about it that somehow feel a little bit tauter somehow. But yeah, it rides and handles rather nicely. This particular road isn't a particular road I'm not that familiar with actually, but so I'm a little bit more cautious than I would normally be. But yeah, over gravel, it's very smooth. It's reasonably quiet. I don't know how it's going to come across on camera going over these gravel roads, but like I say, it was a little bit of a adjustment actually when you start coming on gravel roads, I must admit. Although you could argue in a lot of ways in winter, gravel roads, there's less chance of it being slippery because you've got that gravel there. So sometimes it's actually better to try and find the gravel roads in winter for a little bit more adhesion. And certainly on the channel we'll look at travelling in the winter because, you know, it's Canada. We do get quite harsh conditions, of course. Automatic, so there isn't really much to talk about with the automatic transmission. There is a sport mode. It's got the old flappy paddle gear selectors up and down, up on this side, down on that side. But really, do you ever really touch them? I don't think you really do touch them in in Canada, particularly because, you know, it's mainly flat and it's mainly straight, so there isn't really that many times you would really bother with them. It's an automatic, it does automatic things, let it be an automatic, I guess. So this road eventually should take me onto it should eventually take me onto a proper tarmac road eventually, but there is, like I say, there's lots and lots of miles on this gravel road. I'm obviously not going to show you the full journey here today, so at some point I will slip over to the tarmac roads just to really give you an idea of my overall impressions on that. This is obviously isn't my car, so I don't want to be throwing it around too much, of course. So, like I say, I'm taking it a little bit easy, but yeah, it feels quite nice and it feels quite planted on the road on these gravel roads, to be honest with you. And that's always one thing when you're buying a car in Canada. You go for a test drive, really should go and take it on a test drive on a gravel road, really, because you do find some cars are fantastic on a normal hard road, but then you go take it on the gravel and they're absolutely horrendous. So you never really find out until you actually try it, to be honest with you. We will have to do a little bit of a wiper test as well, won't we? In keeping with my favourite show, Hub Nut. Even though I don't have that same sort of passion about windscreen wipers and triangles of doom as he does. We'll certainly see how this does, because it has got an unusual wiper pattern. Actually, it's got a very unusual wiper pattern actually on these Fusion stroke Mondeos of this era. Steering is good. I don't know about this particular example. I never drove a new one, so it's always hard to compare. I sometimes feel the steering feels a little bit vague, but I don't know if that's because this is an older example or that's just how they are. I don't know. But, you know, this is perfectly happy driving around in these conditions. Always the main problem with travelling on these gravel roads, of course, is unfortunately you do end up getting a lot of stone chips. I mean, there's going to be a car coming up in a moment and I'm going to slow down and move out the way as much as I possibly can, but, you know, we're throwing rocks and stones all over the place here, and you can certainly see how much dust gets thrown up. Today, what temperature? 19 degrees. It's just a nice blue skied sunny day overall of 19. I can see the main road down here actually, so we may as well just keep rolling until we actually get to that main intersection there. Farmers are in the field, very much harvest season, of course, here, so I'm sure they're happy to get a little bit of drier weather after a couple of rainy days over the weekend. Although it's certainly been nicer at the end of this week, that's for sure. Okay, so what have we got coming down here? Probably a big truck by the looks of it. Oh, he's turning off. Nice. I usually head for more of the centre of the road, to be honest with you, when there's no other cars around, because sometimes the shoulders actually can be sometimes a little bit soft and try and drag you into that ditch, which certainly would not be appropriate on this test drive. But yeah, we're coming up to an intersection now, which I believe does take us onto a hard top road, if I'm thinking correctly. Maybe not. Oh, actually, no, we're not. Okay. This isn't going to be a hard top road yet. There you go. Oh, it is, yeah. It is the main road. Sometimes forget in Canada because even the hard top roads are sometimes quite horrendous, but with all the farming traffic coming out there, it fooled me in thinking it wasn't going to be another gravel road for the second. But yeah, now we can kind of like see how it feels on these more regular roads. Avoiding cruise. Speed limits on most of the roads here in Canada, around this area, most of the roads are 100 kilometers an hour. What is that? 62 or so? Although, if you do travel at that speed, you end up with a car behind you because everyone drives 10 kilometers over the speed limit. That seems to be the norm. So if it's 100 kilometers an hour, people are doing 110. And on some of the faster roads, the speed is 110, so people do 120, of course. Makes perfect sense. And if you're not doing that, you seem to be collecting a couple of cars behind you. So what can you do but do something very similar? But yeah, one thing you do notice in Canada here, particularly here in Manitoba, there can be quite a lot of road damage on these roads because obviously the winter is harsh, and because it's only a relatively low population in Manitoba, then they don't really have the budget to make the roads quite as nice, of course. But yeah, no, it drives. It's nice. It's reasonably quiet. There is a certain amount of road noise. There are actually pretty beefy tyres actually on this. Pretty wide tyres. So there's certainly some tyre noise that comes through. But yeah, you're pretty much driving on these roads at sort of British motorway speed limits on what is quite a not the nicest road in the world, of course. You're always looking out for potholes as you're driving along, and obviously animals as well. But I'm supposed to be talking about the Ford Fusion, not driving on Canadian roads. But yeah, it drives nice. Like I say, there's something weird about the steering on. I don't know if it's this example or they're all a little bit like that. You can certainly feel that steering feel not quite as sharp as you would have kind of like hoped. And like I said, I don't know if that's a Fusion thing or it's just this model. I've really no idea, but it's a relatively low kilometre car, so you won't really expect any sort of problems there overall. But yeah, I think that's just a very sort of minor complaint. But information settings and information system is really where I think the problems lie on this model. But as a daily driver, I think it would be perfectly okay. I would certainly consider one. I think that's the testimony, really. I would not be opposed to having one of these, actually. They're a reasonably economical, for here in Canada at least, car. Pretty easy to live with, comfortable, travels rather nicely at the limits of the road, and overall, a nice car. Coming up to this truck, so we're going to have to slow down a wee bit. And there is a junction coming up here anyway. I'm sure you notice how quiet the roads here in Canada, though. It was one of the biggest things and one of the nicest things coming to Canada is to get away from all that traffic, really. It never appealed to me, the busyness of England. So yeah, it is nice to get away from the hustle and bustle and go on these much quieter roads. Incidentally, the rev counter and sort of the fuel gauge and the temperature gauge are all electronic, which I'm not a huge fan of, I must admit. Let's get past this guy, I think. There we go. But yeah, like I say, pretty nice, quiet roads. The sky's huge in Canada. I always thought that when I first landed in Canada. The sky is massive, so on these beautiful days, beautiful sunny days, not a cloud in the sky, it does make you feel good. Now, this is what I mean about the rougher roads. There's quite a lot of broken surfaces. Obviously, if you go off the road as well, you're straight into the gravel there if you have a breakdown. And the edges are crumbling away. And of course, you've got all the agricultural machinery flying around as well. But it's competent. I mean, it gets, like I said, passing, it gets underway quite nicely. It never feels like it's got a big turbo or anything like that, thinking about it being a 2-litre turbo. You never really think of it as a fast car, I must admit. You never really think, oh, that turbo's kicked in. But I guess it's only a small turbo in there. Probably the model I would probably be most interested in actually is the hybrid. Now, I don't know the sort of longevity of that hybrid system, but a pretty economical system actually. It's always nice to have something like this, of this type of vehicle, that's economical really. So that economy would probably be more interesting to me than the turbo actually. But yeah, conclusions. Yeah, it's a good car, and I would not be opposed to owning one. I guess that is the takeaway from that, which always, well, that tells you all you need to know, that it is a pretty nice car and a pretty good car to live with. This isn't my car, of course. We will also do something similar with the fleet cars as well. We'll give you some updates on the fleet cars as time goes by. I just wanted to get this one in the bag while it was hanging around not doing anything really. But yeah, we might not even do that in any particular. I don't know if this is going to be the first video, I'm not sure at this time, but yeah, it'll pop up somewhere in there, and then we'll do other videos as they come out. This particular channel isn't all about cars and driving impressions. There's also going to be a bit, life in Canada, which is why I'm kind of like talking a little bit about Canada at the same time, why I moved to Canada. Them sorts of topics I'm sure will come in, the pros and cons of coming to Canada. I'm sure we'll talk about all that sort of stuff, as well as, the winter time, and we'll do some driving impressions in the winter as well, of course. But please do like and comment the video. Always interested to hear your thoughts of what you want to see on videos now or in the future, or do you like having these car test videos on the channel? Let me know. To be honest with you, I'm going to just pick some cat food up now. That's where I'm kind of like aiming for. I'm just going to go to the shop, grab some cat food, cat treats really, because the cats were complaining this morning that I'd run out of treats. And they weren't very happy. Of course they weren't, the cats. Well, like I say, it's a shame they didn't bring the estate version over, to be honest with you. That would have been a good vehicle, but I guess, well, Ford eventually after this decided we're coming out of the car market, didn't they, and only had the Mustang then in North America. This was kind of like the last dash, so I guess in their views there was no point for an estate because SUVs were the thing. And of course in North America the best selling vehicles of course are trucks, so if you got a truck, do you really need an estate or a wagon, I think is the thinking there. But personally I would much rather have a nice estate. They're much more multifunctional in my view than a truck or an SUV. I think really the only real advantage an SUV has is that little bit of extra ground clearance and the fact it sits up a bit higher, so you can actually feels like you've got more leg room in the back just because you're sat up straighter in an SUV. But overall the space inside isn't actually fantastic. But that's where the world is. It'd be interesting to see what comes after the SUV, really, wouldn't it? Are we going to go back to smaller cars? Obviously electric's a big thing now. I never really thought electric is the environmental answer that everyone's looking for, but they are interesting all the same. But the problem here though with electric cars, obviously in Europe they're getting taken up a lot more now, but the problem in Canada of course is the temperatures for electric cars. We do drop down to minus 40 degrees C and colder here in Manitoba, and then plus 30, 35 in the summertime. But yeah, minus 40, I don't know how that really works with an electric vehicle. It'd be an interesting. I've never really seen proper tests on that. But always, if someone's got an electric car, test it in Manitoba, how it is in summer and how it is in those super cold minus 40 weeks. It must slash the distance. I'm sure it works perfectly okay, and obviously they've kind of like got over the heating problems with things like heat pumps and that, but it must still slash the actual driving distances and the range of the vehicle. So you need a really big high range vehicle, because it's going to be, does it halve the battery distance in those super cold days? Never really seen a good video on that actually. I've seen videos where people possibly in like UK take one and it goes to like minus 5, or yeah, it's not driving as far as minus 5, but real cold temperatures like minus 40, that's what I would really love to see, and see what happens to that battery. Obviously battery technology is only going to get better though, so I'm sure eventually it will be a thing over here as well. And that's not that nobody drives electric cars. There's quite a few Teslas running around. You see a few electric Mustangs driving around, but not popular. Not popular at all. But yeah, it gets down the road pretty well. It gets up to speed pretty well, but it never really feels like that turbo's doing a great deal, unless, like I say, it's a very sort of small turbo on it. I do find these cars are way better road holding than the SUVs, just by the mere fact that obviously it's lower to the road, of course. And I think that's why I always hold on to the thing that it's actually nice to have a car. There's something about it. It would be nice to have a car on the fleet, I've always thought. Although here in Canada you can see how straight the roads are. It's not exactly road holding conditions out here in Canada, is it? It's just straight roads with 90-degree corners, which is probably why I don't miss manual gearboxes that much, because obviously in England I always drove manuals passed my test in a manual transmission car and drove manual transmissions for, I don't know, 20 years or so. Came over to North America, and manual transmissions are hard to get hold of. There's not many of them around at all. But really, then you start thinking, I can understand why in North America everyone drives an automatic, because really, what's the point? It's just a case of driving and getting up to speed, getting up to the top gear as quick as possible, and then sticking it in cruise control. So are you really missing anything by actually having an automatic? Not really, to be honest. It's occasionally nice just to stir them gears around, but really, I can understand, in all honesty, why manuals are pretty much died out in North America, and everyone for a very long time has drove automatics, because really, here in Canada, and I'm sure most places in America, they're just going to be these rather dull straight lines over some more extremely well patched roadworks there, but it gives you an idea of the suspension. I wonder if it's actually set a little bit more softer than in Europe. Actually, it does ride over there quite nicely. You get a little bit of road noise from going over those humps, but it does ride over them quite nicely. We're not talking about Citroen qualities of refinement and smoothness over here, but it does the job. It's not jarring your back going over those rough roads. So I'm just wondering if they did soften it up a bit for the American taste of having a little bit more of a comfortable car. Certainly these seats are very comfortable, although even in this rather not particularly warm day, and I've got the air conditioning on, I always feel a little bit, I don't know, uncomfortable. Yeah, it's got cooled seats, although I find cooled seats a bit of a weird sensation and don't tend to use them anyway. But I guess if you've got leather seats, you have to have them heated and cooled to make them really any good to live with. And here in Canada, it's always nice to have heated seats, but I'm not too bothered about cooled seats. I'd rather just have like a cloth or a velour interior and not really worry about that. Now obviously this is still before the days of all the safety kit, stop start, lane departure, all that sort of stuff, so it doesn't have any of that sort of kit on there, and I think it's all the better for not having all that kit, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm currently stuck behind this van doing 90, so I presume there's somebody else in front of him. Yes, there is. Okay, oh, there we go, look at that. A little K truck. Fantastic, so. Oh, it's nice to see. I'd love a little K truck, I must admit. Definitely the wrong vehicle for these these Canadian roads, because they're all 100, and I think you'd probably be flat out doing 100 on these roads and still holding people up, because like I say, everyone lets you go 10 kilometres over that 100, so he's doing like 90, which is probably just leaving a little bit left. I don't think he'd be flat out, would it? Maybe he is flat out at 90. What's 90? Oh, surely they go faster than 90. But yeah, I think he didn't have much left there, that little Kai truck. But like I say, not at all the right truck. They was never officially sold in Canada. They are imported from Japan as a right-hand drive, incidentally, so you're also sat on the wrong side of the road here. But they sold a few, but I have noticed they're way above my bargain basement car buying, unless I found a very rough one to improve and work on. I don't know if I'll ever see one. It'd be so handy though to be using around the farm. Okay, so anyway, let's wrap this one up. Thank you so much for watching today and the Ford Fusion. Let me know your comments views, feelings in the comments. Always interesting to hear from you. Your sort of experience with the 4th generation Mondeo, or indeed the Ford Fusion here in Canada. How do you get on? Any sort of issues you had with them? Let me know. Because like I say, I would consider getting one once we need another vehicle, to be honest with you. So that would be interesting to hear how you got on. I think the previous generation, the 1st generation Fusion, actually had a better write-up in terms of overall build quality and reliability, but let me know. Always very interesting to hear. But thank you so much for watching today. Please do take care. We'll see you again very soon. All the best and goodbye. Oh, and I almost forgot there, but let's do that wiper test to finish the video off. Unusual wiping pattern overall, but pretty good wiping performance. Goes right to the edge there. Do we get any sort of... you get a little bit of a... You can see that? A dribble of disappointment.